So let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about an operating system that promises one of the most slick, most sought-after experiences in all of tech. But, and this is the best part, without that hefty price tag. Welcome to our explainer on the really fascinating story of PearOS.
You know, it's a question a lot of us have asked ourselves. You love that clean, super intuitive feel of macOS, right? But maybe your wallet or the computer you already own just isn't playing along. So what if? What if you could get that same polished experience on almost any machine you want, and for free?
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about what PearOS even is. Then, we're going to pop the hood and see what makes it tick. After that, we'll get into what it's like to actually use it day to day, and finally, we'll zoom out and talk about why a project like this is actually a pretty big deal.
Okay, let's meet the star of the show. What exactly is this operating system that's got so many people talking? Because, well, it looks an awful lot like something that comes out of Cupertino.
This quote from ZDNet, man, it just hits the nail on the head. The second you lay eyes on the PearOS desktop, you get it. The comparison is immediate. This thing isn't just inspired by macOS, it's practically its digital twin.
So here's the breakdown. PearOS is a Linux-based operating system, which means it's totally free and open source. Its #1 goal is to look and feel just like macOS, making it a super easy transition for anyone used to a Mac. And what's really amazing is that this whole thing was brought back to life by the hard work of a single developer. Incredible.
Okay, looking the part is one thing, but how does it actually pull it off? To understand that, we've got to look at what's going on under the hood, at its core components.
PearOS is really built on 3 key pillars. The foundation is Arch Linux, which is known in the Linux world for being incredibly powerful and flexible. The Mac-like visuals, that all comes from a heavily customized version of the KDE Plasma desktop. And because it's built on Arch, it gets its updates using something called a rolling release model. So let's unpack what all that means.
First up, the desktop environment. Just think of this as the face of the operating system. It's everything you see and click on. PearOS uses KDE Plasma, which is a big deal because it's known for being super customizable. And that flexibility is exactly what allows the Pear desktop to so perfectly copy the macOS look. We're talking right down to the menu bar at the top, the iconic dock at the bottom, and even the little window button. Now for the updates. Because it's based on Arch Linux, PearOS uses a rolling release. So instead of getting these huge, clunky updates once or twice a year, you get a constant stream of the latest software as soon as it's ready. It keeps you on the cutting edge, though the other method, fixed releases, is sometimes seen as a bit more stable for absolute beginners.
All right, enough of the technical stuff. What does it actually feel like to use PearOS every single day as your main computer? Well, according to people who've put it through its paces, the experience is honestly incredibly impressive. They describe it as stable, responsive, and just smooth. That combo of a solid Arch Linux base and the polished KDE desktop really works. And this number just perfectly sums up the whole idea behind PearOS. When you first install it, you only get 16 apps. 16! But that's not a bad thing. It's actually the point. It gives you this clean, bloat-free canvas so you can build it up with only the software you actually want. No junk.
In fact, the whole thing is so polished that reviewers basically said they had to go looking for problems. You know, actively trying to find something, anything, to critique. That's a pretty good sign that you've built something special.
So, after all that digging, what did they find? What was the one tiny little issue they could point to? A minor bug with the download stack icon in the dock. You know, that little thing that's supposed to fan out to show your recent downloads? Yeah, the problem is pretty simple. The icon's there, but it just doesn't update. It says you have 0 files even when your downloads folder is full of stuff. It's a tiny glitch in what's otherwise a seamless experience, and almost certainly an easy fix for a future update. No biggie.
So we've established that PearOS is a really well-made, capable operating system. But a project like this is about so much more than just being a clever copycat. So for our final section, let's talk about what it all means in the bigger picture of technology.
When you get right down to it, PearOS is just a perfect example of the open source spirit. It's all about freedom. The freedom to take tools that already exist, share them, and then remix them into something completely new and exciting. And you've got to remember, something like PearOS doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's the result of a huge, passionate, global community. This picture here from a big open source conference in Europe kind of gives you a feel for it. It's this whole culture of sharing code and ideas that makes projects like PearOS possible in the first place. At the end of the day, PearOS is powerful proof of something really important. It shows that with enough passion and access to open source tools, a single person or a small team can create something that isn't just stable and functional, but also beautiful. Something that can go toe-to-toe with products made by the biggest companies on the planet.
And that really brings us to a final, pretty powerful thought. In a world that feels dominated by a few tech giants, PearOS is this great reminder that some of the coolest, most user-focused software is being built by a worldwide community of volunteers. So next time you're thinking about a new computer, just ask yourself this: could your next operating system be built by a community?